Hello, boys, girls, babes. Welcome back to the Janae Talks Caps podcast. As always, thank you all so much for tuning in today. And we would like to invite you, if you haven't already done so, to please go ahead and subscribe to our podcast if you're enjoying your time here, as we will have a new episode for you every week. We wouldn't want you to miss any of them, and we are going to continue doing episodes, even though we now know for certain that the Washington Capitals will not be in the Stanley Cup playoffs this season. So there is only 5 games left in the regular season for the Caps. But hey, you know what? We are still going to be here doing our show throughout the playoffs because we're hockey fans and fans of the sport in general, as well as obviously being Washington Capitals fans. So we love hockey in general here at Janae Talks Caps. So we will still be here, like I said, and we hope that you all will come along for that NHL playoff ride with us. I'm sure that there will be, as usual, just as there always is, plenty to talk about, I'm sure, throughout those Stanley Cup playoffs, as there is always quite a bit of drama going on and no shortage of things to talk about, whether or not your favorite team is in the dance or not. So, like I said, we will be here talking about all of it. So don't forget to subscribe, please. Like I said, if you are enjoying your time here with us on this show. And babes, we thought that for this week's show, since the schedule is extremely light on Caps games this week, they don't even play one until Thursday, that being in Montreal against the Canadiens. And so obviously, we've got no playoff previews or anything like that to do for the Capitals. So we thought that we would take this opportunity with the show this week to discuss. We're going to do 3 studs and 3 duds of this Washington Capitals season. Now, the criteria, obviously, it's probably pretty self-explanatory. The 3 studs that we've picked out are the 3 things, whether players or otherwise, that have been bright spots for the Caps throughout this season. The 3 duds, if you will, are really just that. They're duds. They're guys from whom we wanted a lot more this season. Guys who didn't live up to expectations, guys who were just plain bad, or at the very least, disappointing, right? So, and you know what? I'm going to start with the duds because I would like to save the studs for the end, as we always like to end on a positive note here at Janae Talks Caps when it's possible. So for the duds, and you guys, my fellow Caps fans, are smart, so you guys can probably guess 2 out of the 3, if not all 3 of these duds. There might be a little bit of disagreement perhaps on the ranking of them 1 through 3, but I'm sure that probably most of us probably have the same, like I said, at least 2 out of 3, if not all 3. So first up, easily, in my mind, the biggest stud of the season, and probably one of the biggest studs that the Washington Capitals have had in a long, long time. You guessed it. It's the one and only Anthony Mantha. Now, if you missed it, we did do a great episode largely about Anthony Mantha and his play for last week's show. So you can find that on our episode list and put that in your queue if you missed it last week, as we do talk very in-depth about Mantha and his shortcomings on the ice during that episode. So for this episode, and because, we do have multiple other players and things to talk about, and because if we're talking Anthony Mantha's shortcomings, we could literally go on and on and on and on and on and on for 4 days straight. So we'll just summarize here today because, like I said, we do have other things to talk about. So Anthony Mantha, right? He doesn't score, right? That's first and foremost. He gets paid as if he should score. His salary cap hit certainly suggests that he should score. His cap hit probably says that he should be somewhere around, I would say, 30 goals every season. And yet, he doesn't come anywhere close to that. He's got, for this season, 11 goals, 27 points total on this season. So he is being outscored by Caps fourth line center, Nick Dowd, among others. To be honest, like Mantha's basically being outscored by everybody on this Washington Capitals team, by almost everybody in the league, in the NHL. And you know what? Like Mantha's shooting percentage this season isn't even that bad. So this isn't just some sort of anomaly season for him where, his shooting percentage is like unsustainably low or anything like that. His shooting percentage this season is 9.2%. So that's not horrible. The problem is he is so infuriatingly lazy out there that he doesn't get to pucks or get to areas to create any shots for himself. So he just, he basically just stands around with his thumb up his ass, for lack of a better term, which is a big reason why he only has 119 shots this season. So, like, just to do that math for you, with only 119 shots, right, his shooting percentage would have to be a sky-high 25.2% in order for him to have hit 30 goals. So it wasn't even as if he's even close to getting to, like, 25, 30 goals. He's not even close. He's just not doing anything out there offensively at all. He doesn't create any shots for himself, like I said, primarily because, like, creating shots, it takes work. It takes effort. So, like, that's why I always laugh in the face of the people who are always like, oh, well, of course Alex Ovechkin scores the most goals. Look at how many shots he has. Like, dude, do you think it is easy? Do you think it's easy to get shots on net in the NHL? Because it isn't. If it were so easy, do you not think that everyone would be shooting with the frequency that Alex Ovechkin does? Of course they would be. I'm sure everybody would love to have 822 career goals. But getting a shot on net in the NHL, it takes work. Like, you have to work to get yourself open, first of all. You have to work to find those areas where you'd even be able to get a shot off. You have to work to get the puck. And even before any of that, you have to work to get out of your own defensive zone. You have to work to get down the ice to the offensive zone before you can even think about getting a shot on net. So to all the people who have said throughout the years, who have said that about Ovechkin in the past, you're all idiots. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. So it's primarily, obviously, the guys on what we like to call Penn BC. That is the extremely biased towards the Pittsburgh Penguins NBC network. Has gotten a little bit better now that Mike Milbury is no longer on the air, but still, it's pretty bad over there. So anyone who said that in the past about Ovechkin, like I said, idiots. So now, back to our regularly scheduled programming of shitting on Anthony Mantha. Listen, Mantha, obviously, like I said, he hasn't done anything offensively. Like, that's obvious to anyone who checks the box scores after the games, right? But to me, what's honestly even more infuriating about his play is just, like, the complete lack of contributing anything else positive to the team. Like, I wrote this to a fellow Caps fan on our Facebook page, that being Janae Talks Caps on Facebook. I wrote this just the other day. So shout out to Patrick Garrity. I hope I'm saying that right. But yeah, like I was saying to Patrick, Anthony Mantha, it's like if you are not going to score in this league, then you have to do something else. Like, if you're not going to score, if you're not going to contribute anything offensively, then you have to find other ways to contribute to earn your paycheck, right? Like, because there's other things that you can do, other ways that you can make an impact in the game of hockey when you're not scoring. Like, that's what makes hockey so great, right? Is that it's not just all about the offense all the time. If you aren't scoring, if you happen to be going through a slump or what have you, then there's so many other things that you can do out there in order to contribute something positive to your team, right? So, like, for Anthony Mantha, if you aren't scoring, dude, you gotta find another way to contribute to the success of your team. It's that simple. Like, either play hard defensively, which he doesn't, hustle your ass off and bring energy on every shift, which he doesn't, throw a big hit, which he doesn't. These are just some of the things that can be done to help your team when you aren't scoring, like I said. And yet, Anthony Mantha, he has chosen time and time again to do none of the above. So, and that's, like I said, that's what I was saying the other day on Facebook, is that, like, for example, like, the rare occasions where Alex Ovechkin, for example, is not scoring, like he'll usually put up like 10 to 12 hits in the game, right? If he's not scoring, a lot of the time when he is scoring as well. But like if he's not scoring in Ovi's case, he finds another way, he finds something else that he can do in order to help his team, in order to have a large positive impact, right? So like Anthony Mantha, like this guy is humongous. Like he's 6'5", and yet he doesn't play physically at all. So like to me, I don't know, like that just seems like it'd be a really easy, no-brainer kind of way when you aren't scoring to still contribute something positive to the team. And yet he just refuses to do it. He won't do it. Like it's literally as if he's allergic to throwing a hit out there. Like I don't get it. Like the guy just has no heart. It's honestly pathetic to watch. It's gotten harder and harder to watch the more time that's gone on, because you keep waiting for him to do something and he just doesn't do fucking anything out there. Like 6'5" and just, like I said, as soft as toilet paper. Like it's just really, like I said, it's just not contributing anything positive to the team. And in fact, the only impact that he is having and that he has had is a negative one, right? Like when he turns the puck over seemingly every time that he touches it, he's having a negative impact. And that's the only impact that he's had, is a negative one. So like all of that, for me anyway, adds up to make Anthony Mantha our number one dud of this season. It's a prestigious title, and I'm sure the only time that he was number one for anything this season, which, like I said, will hopefully be his last season in a Washington Capitals jersey. I cannot take any more of this. So we move on. We move on to our number two, that being our number two on our duds list. And for number two, we have chosen to go with Caps centerman Evgeny Kuznetsov. Now, the nearly $8 million man has had a very disappointing season that's left a lot to be desired for Caps fans. And if we're being honest here, like it feels like at this point that, it's about, I would say like 4 out of every 5 seasons of his are disappointments, like, which is obviously not good enough at that sizable salary cap hit. But I don't know, man, like he literally only seems to show up for 1 out of every 5 seasons or so. And when he shows up, the Caps win the Stanley Cup. That's what's so frustrating about it and about him. But for Kuznetsov, like he's got 54 points in 76 games this season, which, it wouldn't be bad numbers for an average centerman in the league. But obviously, like Kuzi is not an average centerman, right? Like he is an extremely talented player with an extremely high skill level and skating ability. And so like at $8 million per season too, and with his talent level, you obviously want more. You want a lot more than 0.71 points per game from him. And I think for a player of Kuzi's talent level, honestly, like being a point per game player is the least that we should expect of him on a yearly basis. Like I think that's more than a fair expectation to have for him. He's more than capable of it. And you know what? Like he agreed to being held to that standard when he signed that big contract extension. So, but so far, like I said, he's not been holding up his end of the bargain. And, he may not get too many more chances here to change that narrative for himself. If the rumors are true of the Caps wanting to trade him, he may not get too many more chances, like I said, to change that narrative. So, but yeah, I mean, like I said, like just 54 points this season. And only 12 of those are goals that he has scored himself. And if you want to add a little bit more insult to the injury, he's also a -19 on the season to boot. So not a lot of great things happening out there on the ice for Kuznetsov this season, which makes him our number 2 dud. So, the Caps either need to start getting a lot more out of this guy on a regular basis, or else they do need to trade him, because right now his $8 million cap hit is an anchor on the team that's tying them to mediocrity. If you aren't going to get $8 million worth of play out of Evgeny Kuznetsov, then spend that money elsewhere to improve your team, right? Like the Caps have a lot more flexibility now to be able to do something like that, to be able to realistically let go of Kuznetsov now with the emergence of a guy like Dylan Strome, who's taken over that top center spot from Kuznetsov anyway. So the Caps are not going to be as scared, if you will, or at least as hesitant to trade Kuznetsov as they might have been before, as now they already have his replacement on their roster in their lineup and already playing at a very high level in Strome, who is also, by the way, 5 years younger than Kuznetsov, so that matters as well. So, like I said, Kuznetsov is probably running out of chances to redeem himself on this team. I do hope for his sake and for our sake, because the two go hand in hand, that he does figure this out here, that he, gets his shit together, for lack of a better term, because the team is better, so much better, when he is playing at a high level that we know he's capable of, right? We've seen it before. Like I said, the last time that we really, truly saw it consistently was in 2018. The Caps won the Stanley Cup, obviously, with him playing a huge part. So now, moving along to our third and final dud of this season. And you know what? Instead of choosing just one individual, I'm going to put up a blanket indictment of the entire coaching staff. Because I really don't think that the problems that we've seen out there on the ice in terms of, the systems, in terms of personnel decisions, all of that, I really don't think that all of that is just on Peter Laviolette. He's got a whole staff there with him, and they've all been just as incompetent and just as complicit in a lot of these things too. So, as an example, who runs the power play, for example? Right? We know that is Blaine Forsyth. That's his department. And if you all remember, a big part of what actually originally got the Caps into this mess of missing the playoffs for the first time in 9 years was the power play. And it's outstanding, it's outstanding predictability, really just astounding predictability. When certain guys were out of the lineup. They couldn't seem to adjust what they were doing at all to suit the strengths of the guys who were now on the ice in place of those injured players. And whose job is that to make those adjustments? It's Blaine Forsyth's. That's his job. That's basically his only job on the team. So the Caps, obviously, they missed, some key forwards on that power play for a lot of the season. And they missed, obviously, John Carlson quarterbacking it for a lot of the season. And you know what? The power play, it really didn't start showing any signs of life again until they acquired Rasmus Sandin at the trade deadline. And that was basically, just Sandin being such an elusive player himself. And teams really weren't used to seeing him up top there on the Caps power play. But it certainly, the point is, it certainly wasn't anything that Blaine Forsyth changed systematically, right? That got things working again. It was more so just the players figuring it out on their own, right? You may as well not even pay a coach to do that job then, because Blaine Forsyth was happy. He was happy enough collecting his paycheck and running this Caps power play, and by extension the Caps playoff hopes, straight off of a cliff and into the ground. He really seemed perfectly content with that, with doing that. He didn't change anything about the power play systematically all season. Even when it was clicking at less than 10% efficiency and looked absolutely awful out there, he didn't have any ideas, any thoughts in his head about anything that he might do to fix it. He just kept basically trotting the same things out there, the same system, the same scheme, the same plays, the same everything. He didn't have any ideas, like I said, any thoughts in his head about how to fix it. That much was very clear. So just really a complete cobweb factory up there between Blaine Forsyth's ears. And, what can you say? I don't know why this guy still has a job. I really don't. And by the way, what about the goaltending coach as well, Scott Murray? This is something that I have been wildly surprised at how little people actually talk about this, because I think that it's pretty painfully clear that we need to be on the hunt for a new goalie coach as well, because ever since Scott Murray took over for Mitch Korn, first it was Braden Holtby's game that went to shit, and since then, every goalie who comes here plays worse when they're here, and every goalie who leaves here plays better once they leave. So do we think that that's a coincidence? because it's not. Like, speaking as a goalie myself, your goaltending coach is always the most important person on the team for you. Like, it matters a lot more than people think. It really does, you guys. So that's all I'm saying. Like, it matters a lot, and I think that that's something that has been very underrated. You know, like, we took it for granted a little bit when Mitch Korn was here, just how good he was with the Caps goaltenders, and ever since he left, like, I don't know, for me, like, it appears anyway from the outside that Scott Murray is not doing the job. That's all I'm saying. So the entire coaching staff, like I said, blanket indictment, that is my dud number 3. Third and final dud of this season for the Washington Capitals. I mean, not the third and final dud. Obviously, there's been more duds. There's been too many duds to count. Unfortunately, that's why we're missing the playoffs. But those are the 3 big ones for me. The Caps, you know what? Like, they can clean house of the whole coaching department for all I care at this point. Like, I think that would serve them well. Anyways, now to the fun part, the studs of this season for the Capitals. Well, like, stud number 1, I think we could all agree definitely deserves to be high on this list, and that would be Dylan Strome. You know, the first-year Cap centerman, he has set a new career high now this season in points, and he's second on the Caps overall in points behind only some guy named Alex Ovechkin. So, you know, it goes without saying, but anytime that you're second only to Alex Ovechkin in anything, that's pretty damn good. So Strome, he has had an awesome season. He's been one of the few bright spots for the Caps, and obviously, like, for him to set a new career high in points during his first season with his new team, you know, it's got us very excited for what the future might hold for this kid in Washington. He has fit in super well here. All of his teammates love him, and he did sign a 5-year contract extension recently to remain with the Caps for at least 5 more seasons after this one. So that is obviously great news if you're a Capitals fan. Like I said, Strome, he's been one of the few bright spots, very bright spots of this season for the Caps. He's exactly the type of player that the Capitals needed to acquire and prioritize signing. You know, he's young, he's highly skilled, and now, like I said, they've got him locked up to a very reasonable long-term contract. So that's going to be very important moving forward. And a huge thank you, by the way, to the Chicago Blackhawks organization for being stupid enough to give him to us for free. Like, what were they thinking? That was certainly a decision that one could make, I guess. I don't know what they were doing there. Anyways, Dylan Strome, he's been great. Stud number 2, and stud number 2, you know what? He has been a stud in all of his 18 years and counting with the Washington Capitals so far. And we know that he will continue to be a stud moving forward from now until forever. That is Captain Alex Ovechkin. So stop me if you've heard this before, but Ovi, he is both the goals and points leader for the Capitals this season, and that's even with him having had to miss some games at different points during the season, as he's had a nagging lower body injury for a lot of this season, and obviously his father, you know, tragically passing away as well, so he understandably missed some time for that as well. But yeah, like, even with missing some games, Ovi still leads his team in all of these categories. And did I mention, like, that this guy is 37 years old? Crazy stuff. 37 years old, and he still would have been on pace again for another 50-plus goal season had he been present to play the full 82 games. He's got 42 goals and counting right now on the season, and he's also over a point per game again as well. So just crazy, like I said, incredible, amazing stuff from the 37-year-old. Who this season continued to smash numerous NHL records. And he also, by the way, surpassed some guy named Gordie Howe for second on the NHL's all-time scoring list. So not bad, Ovi, not bad at all. Like I said, he just continues racking up milestones, continues smashing NHL records. He broke another Wayne Gretzky record as well, which we talked about on, can't remember if it was our last episode or the one before that. But most 40-goal seasons ever in NHL history. That record was previously held in a tie by Ovechkin and Wayne Gretzky. Ovechkin now has surpassed that mark. He holds the record all on his own now. Wayne Gretzky is no longer the record holder. So anytime that you take an NHL record from Wayne Gretzky, that's a pretty good day. So finally, our number 3 stud rather of this season for the Caps. I'm going to go with Nick Dowd, and I'll tell you why. Like, first of all, just being straight up, he is the best fourth line center in this league. Like, honestly, it's not even that close. He's the best fourth line center in the league. He set a new career high for himself this season with 13 goals already in just 63 games played, as well as a new career high in points with 25 already. He plays against the opposition's best offensive players every single night, and he completely shuts them down regularly. He's a +8 on the season, a season in which almost no one on the Caps has managed to stay a plus player. And yet he has, like Nick Dowd has. And like I said, even while consistently playing against the best that the opposition has to offer each night. So he's just a beast out there, man. Like, honestly, like, he plays physical. He's flawless defensively. He's one of the best faceoff guys in the league, one of the best penalty killers in the league. He's a menace on the forecheck. He's a pest out there as well. Like, all of the guys in the league will tell you that they hate playing against this guy. And the Caps really, really missed him when he was out injured. Like, you could see it. You could see it right away. And that's basically exactly when the season pretty much started going to shit for the Caps, right? To be honest with you. Like, was when Nick Dowd got injured. I said it when it happened, when his injury happened, that the Caps are going to miss this guy more than people realize. And that's exactly what happened. Like, he just does everything out there on the ice for the Caps, and he does everything so well. So the Caps were kind of managing to hang in there through all of those other injuries, injuries to much bigger names than Nick Dowd. They were pretty much getting through that, right? Like, they were okay. They were in a playoff spot, pretty comfortably in a playoff spot, actually. And then Nick Dowd got injured and everything went to shit. So it just goes to show you that those unheralded guys who maybe, they don't get the same media attention as the bigger names do, but like oftentimes these guys, and certainly Nick Dowd's case, they're very important to a team's success. So hug your fourth line centers, folks, especially if you've got a great one like the Caps do in Nick Dowd. Very important. So anyways, that's going to be first of all, that's going to be it for the 3 studs. We did the 3 studs of this season for the Washington Capitals. I would like you to let us know in the comments section if you agree with our picks or not, or if you would have picked something different. Let us know that too. We always love to hear from you guys. I wanted to thank you all again so much for listening today, for being here with us as always. And, I do have to apologize today. I'm kind of gutting it through this podcast episode here this week. My throat really sore. It's bothering me a lot. So if my voice sounds a little bit different than usual, that would be why. But yeah, we're hockey players. We gut it out. We tough it out. So please, like I said, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast if you haven't already. We love having you along for this crazy Washington Capitals ride. Cardiac Capitals, as always. But yeah, like, you guys, we appreciate all of you guys so much. It would not be the same without each and every one of you. So thank you all again, like I said, so much. We will, of course, chat again next week. So until next time, babes, and as always, rain or shine, let's go Caps, baby.